Dear friends, I want to tell you a story. It is one of the stories that resonate most strongly in my head when thinking about the amazing year we've been through since the day in July when the citizens of Israel rose up into a new time in one of the largest protests, no, actually the biggest protest in Israel's history. Following that beautiful summer, we moved from a period of huge rallies into a winter of more focused struggle. Out of the 120 tent camps that we built during the summer, there were few who managed to survive. One of them was located in a rough neighborhood of Tel Aviv, Hatikva. Hatikva in Hebrew means hope, Hatikva. However, that neighborhood has nothing to do with hope. It is a neighborhood of hardworking people. Many work in more than one job and with no chance of ever escaping poverty. Supported by what's left of our welfare system, they've been struggling to bring food to their families, to send their kids to school. Like most Israelis, when they go to vote, they don't vote, they do it not based on their self-interest on taxes or the housing reform, but on their position towards their enemy. Absurdly, most of them end up supporting the parties that made neoliberalism their new religion, making them its biggest victims. One rainy day, we got an evacuation order from the municipality to evacuate the tent camp. This wasn't an evacuation similar to the ones of other tent camps, because this one was not a home for only protesters, but also for homeless families, for whom a tent was their only roof for the cold winter days. We tried to convince the municipality, the Ministry of Housing, to find solutions for those specific families, to no avail. And then, the last night for the tent arrived, but we could not give up. We gathered together, people from many different places in Israel. Everybody has the right for a home, we agreed. And then, representatives of those homeless families from the neighborhood went throughout the country and asked others who suffer from similar housing problems to join their protest. They invited Bedouins who were struggling to maintain their officially unrecognized villages. And they invited Arab Israeli citizens who lived in towns where they never could get permission from the government to build outside of a very limited zone. And then they also invited the young middle-class people who were fighting for affordable housing in the cities. And so we came there, together, people from different worlds, from different galaxies sometimes, marching, shouting, and holding each other's hands. When the police came, we didn't fight. We had decided earlier that violence is the tool of old politics, not of the one that we're creating new. What we could... The only thing we could do to continue the protest was to be very creative. We ran together through the little alleys of that neighborhood, of closed markets, drumming with people who came out of their balconies to the streets to join us. It felt amazing to finally be there, be one, united, all of us, flushed and sweaty from the effort. Parents and grandparents and children and young students, even a few babies in their father's hands. It all went well until the police were ordered to step up the response. They started to hit us heavily, pushing some and punching others. Without a warning, I was taken by 5 cops to a police car, beaten to the floor, choked inside by a furious officer who hid his name tag. We found ourselves locked up together for a whole night in one cell. Friends, moms, students, ex-military officers, All of us, different people, different worlds, together. Ladies and gentlemen, meet us, the new criminals of Israel. Criminals, because we committed the most dangerous crime. We united. This story, sad as it may sound, is actually a very happy one. Struggles aren't easy, although they can be happy, and ours is definitely the happiest we've ever had. It's the happiest because this is the first struggle that really has hope. I came here to show you what our government officials don't want you to know. They prefer to brag about our great financial situation, our wonderful democracy. But for us, the young citizens of our country, we have quite a different perspective. Many of our best friends, upon finishing their military service, left the country and are today living in Europe or the US. Many more have given up on future in Israel, not only because of the challenging financial situation, but also because of lack of hope in our political process. It is the result of 30 long years shared by both left and right-wing governments that reduced our social and health services one by one and broadened our lack of equality to the vastest extent it could go. According to the OECD report, we're second in the Western world in income inequality, just behind the US. Yeah, you always win. But we're learning. That breach of our social security network made our differences stronger and broke Israel into fragments and sectors, all fighting against each other, filled with trauma and hatred. In Israel, it's like that. Tell me who your enemies are, and I'll tell you who you are. Jews against Arabs, Mizrahi against Ashkenazi, ultra-Orthodox against secular people. 20% of Israel's population is not Jewish, but it is not the only community who feels neglected. So do those all too often invisible citizens who don't live in the country's center, and the more than half of Israelis who don't have white skin or European heritage. For years, the government hadn't listened to us, so we blamed each other. Fed by constant fears of our external threats, we could not argue when our government moved more money to the defense budget, taking it directly from a welfare system. With no social security and with diminished chances of social mobility, there was no way for us to become more united committee. We developed only more hatred. When some of my friends and I pitched tents on Rothschild Boulevard to protest the unbearable cost of living, we did not imagine that those events would create the first opportunity in Israel's history for our society to put its inner conflict aside and stand together to create itself anew, this time as an egalitarian, compassionate society. For the first time, we didn't look at the past with horror, but at our future, and with great hope. For the first time, we had no fear, only shining eyes that could stare down any threat, knowing history was being made. That day in July saw the formation of the largest protest movement in the history of Israel, one that eventually brought around 500,000 from all walks of life to the streets, calling not only for affordable housing, but for justice, solidarity, and democracy. העם דורש צדק חברתי. The people demand social justice. Israel had the highest number of protesters per capita in the whole world in a long time, something that would compare to 19 million Americans out on the streets on the one single night protesting a cause. Just imagine that. 19 million Americans, one night, for one cause. Sadly, there are those in government who wish to compensate for the missing social cohesion by overemphasizing external threats and beating again on the drums of war. While the security establishment has been dealing with many issues, Iran first and foremost, with great professionalism and responsibility, our leaders in government have exploited these fears and have avoided dealing with the health of the very society they claim to be defending. The Zionist dream of our nation, of our national home as a safe shelter, has morphed into a nightmare of our home as a bomb shelter. Our leaders are attempting to create a false sense of unity, forged in fear and often in hatred, as they continue to, in practice, encourage greater disunity and inequality. But we cannot build if we're constantly in hiding. A month ago, my Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, came here to Washington, D.C., and shamefully compared our lives to those of our grandparents who lived in the ghettos, as if we were doomed to live under permanent, intractable threat, as if Israel were the modern incarnation of that ghetto. We don't want this. We want hope. Indeed, our grandparents wanted hope as well. They did not dwell exclusively in the past. They built, under threats far graver than today, a thriving country. Our future cannot be guided by threats alone. We must build a vision for a common purpose. Today, we feel hope again. It is not surprised that many of our friends living abroad came back to stand side by side with us during this miraculous reawakening. They came back to fight for this thing called Israel, to take back Israel, if you like. They came back to fight for our future. In a short time, we have already gained serious, tangible results. We compel the government to lower the age of which free education begins, lifting a heavy financial burden from the backs of young parents. We succeeded in winning the creation of new options for affordable housing. We've had victories fighting for workers' rights. Social justice has become more than a phrase. Now it's uttered approvingly by preschool kids, politicians, and media alike. But this is a marathon, and we have only completed the first mile. There is so much more to do. Our generation has learned to see politics as a dirty world. If we're to be successful in the long run, we must learn to reclaim language and the practice of new politics. We cannot fear engaging with our political institutions. This will take time, courage, and resources. And the political forces stepped up against us are not weak or simple. They're the most powerful forces one could ever imagine. Perhaps some of you are waiting for me to say the word peace. I know lines on a map are important. I know investing resources on one side or the other of a line matters. But we're fighting for something much bigger. We're fighting for our society's values. To build a society that moves away from indifference to inequality and suffering. to build a society that looks to embrace assured citizenship, mutual respect, and concern, that asserts our rights, not least to economical dignity. That is a society that will stop doing certain things and start doing other things. When our grandparents came to the Middle East with their crazy, beautiful dream, they did it with great courage. And no matter how difficult this struggle will be, we must remember them and have no fear when dealing even with those who mislead the people and betray these people's rights, life, and happiness. We will never give up. We spend our days and nights traveling throughout the country, organizing communities, establishing the foundations for a long-lasting social movement. Sleep is not an option. Despair is not an option, too. We're here to stay. And we plan to be everywhere. In schools, universities, trade unions, municipalities, the private sector, the Knesset, the government, everywhere. I talked about the cross-communal partnerships that we build. One is missing: you. I know and admire the histories of many of the communities and individuals in this room. I know of your important history in the trade union movement, of your involvement in the civil rights struggle, and of the role that American Jewry takes today in fighting for social justice in the US and throughout the world. I know you not only fight for my country, but also for my values. This is time to put those two together. It's time to build a constitution for our country. It's time to get involved. It's time to look up. It is time to share our hopes and make them reality. We haven't got a lot of time, but we do have great dreams, and those dreams are our best weapon. Instead of running away from our enemies, let's walk together towards one beautiful and crazy dream. Beautiful and crazy dream of a new Israel. One dream that can soon become true. Thank you very much.